Hey everybody, thunder in the desert here in the morning. I like getting up early in the morning out here and just walking around, doing a little early morning meditation or walking meditation or out here in the desert in the morning. It's getting cooler. Wow, this will probably be the last day of, let's say, close to 100 degrees. But it's coming up here in the next couple of days. It's going to be like 80 degrees, which is really nice. And the nights are getting cooler. It's getting nice in the desert. This is a good time of year. Take a walk outside in the morning and check out the beautiful purple hue in the mountains and smell the chaparral and look around and not see another friggin' soul for miles and miles and miles, because I'm out in the middle of nowhere and I love it. I just thought I'd pop off this video. Just came in from outdoors and sitting here in my bedroom and reflecting on some things. Thunder's kind of a character because I have many facets, many sides. There's the shamanistic side, and there's the Taoist side, and then there's the very spiritual side, and then there's the wisdom keeper, Native American component from my bloodline. But first and foremost, I like to be a truth teller. I've done a lot of videos on meditation and tracking and spiritual awareness and the whole ball of wax. But you know what? Thunder's just thunder, and sometimes I look at the world and talk about that shit too. Was talking to a friend yesterday. I guess he's a friend. Yeah, he's a friend. A radio acquaintance, because I'm into shortwave radio, and he has a little company in South Carolina, and we never really talked about politics or anything. But kind of got into it yesterday, and you know what? I love the guy. He's a great guy, but I can't believe how deluded people are and the shit they buy into. You know, God, you'd think everybody would be somewhat enlightened as to what the fuck's going on with politics and how what a sham it is, and how the deep state runs everything, and how I don't know. I just scratch my head and I think, man, don't people know at least the basic stuff about how they're getting fucked over by the government, and how politics is all a sham, and what the deep state's doing and what the government's doing around the world with their drive for power and greed and nation building and replacing sovereign government leaders with their own puppets and stuff that I just take for granted, that I know that other people just don't have a friggin' clue. It's scary, really. I mean, it's pretty scary that people are that dumb, you know. Even your friends, I mean, you know, well-meaning people I just shake my head sometimes. I've been around way, way, way too long. And been into too much, let's say, of life to have people come off like, it just surprises me. That's all I got to say. I mean, sometimes they even bring, you start talking to them and they bring up the word, well, isn't that a conspiracy theory? And I say, you know who invented the word conspiracy theory? And they say, no. And I go, well, that was invented by the CIA back around the time when Kennedy got shot. And they put out this official bullshit line about Oswald and all this stuff. And of course, they wanted the people to buy that line, just like they always do. And so the CIA coined this term conspiracy theory and put it out there for everybody that didn't buy the official bullshit line, so that they could label these people with a label. They could put a label on people that questioned what really happened. Okay, and so they put the term out there, conspiracy theorist or conspiracy, and they did that a long time ago, and people still are using that. That's a conspiracy theory type thing. Whenever you question an official story or authority or think outside the box, whenever you are a free spirit and a free thinker and think for yourself, you're labeled with that. And man, I was trying to sit around and think about a label I could put on people that say, you're a conspiracy theorist. Put a label on them, see how they like it, It's just amazing the shit that's going on in the world and the wool that's being pulled over people's eyes. Thinking that actually politics really counts, for one thing. All this Trump and Hillary bullshit, fill in the blanks. It could be Trump and Hillary or Obama and whoever or blah, 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 blah. Doesn't matter because both parties, I can remember when parties were actually different, but now they're the same. In fact, the Democrats got so hardcore that you could hardly call them liberal anymore. And they're so in bed with neocons, warmongers. The lines have become blurred, people, purposely. But see, the thing is, it don't matter about whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, because they're both run by the same people. They're going to get into office who they want. And when I say they, I'm talking about the deep state. I'm talking about the central bankers. I'm talking about the people with the bucks that run everything into the ground. And who control and manipulate and murder and racketeer and lay that on mankind in all ways, shapes, and forms, and who have these deep, dark agendas that we know nothing about. We can only guess, we can only surmise through looking at history and through thinking outside the box and through reading books, lots of books that talk about previous agendas and history and fall of civilizations and educating yourself as to the facts of what's really going on around you. You have to do this. Otherwise, you're just walking around just like the rest of humanity, thinking that everything's hunky dory until one day the shit hits the fan and your ass is caught in a ringer, and you don't know what happened. You're completely in the dark about what's happening. You live out on a ranch like I do here for any length of time, and then you go into town and you can see exactly what's happening. It's a culture shock. People are steeped in their own illusions of what life is all about. They think life is about cruising down to Starbucks in the morning and getting a latte, which is fun. I'm not saying that's bad, but and then going about their daily grind with their ass in the ringer of being wrung out in slave mode, working day and night just to make ends meet. And putting up with the pressures of society as such that inflation, food prices going up, being manipulated day and night monetarily, getting ripped off, putting up with the system of planned the apparatus, of society, which is planned out to rip people off through racketeering and a non-personalization and recorded phone calls, calling up certain people. Anywhere you call now, it's a phone call, it's a phone answering menu thing. Please listen because our menu may have changed. Can't get to a real person. And then when you do get to a real person, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So the problem that you have is not taken care of. And everything is kind of has this illusionary sheen of stupidity about it. So that when you finally do get things done, you're exhausted. You've filled out a bunch of paperwork, or you've gone through a bunch of phone calls, or it's all planned this way, people. The whole thing out there, the whole ball of wax, is about manipulation, lack of real spirituality, propaganda through all kinds of sources: religion, government, schools. Thunder's just waxing on and waxing off here, just waxing on and waxing off, kind of like that Karate Kid movie, wax on, wax off. I'm a martial artist, and I think outside the box, and I'm a pilot. I've done quite a few things in my life. It's amazing, though, when you sit around and contemplate your environment and look at it from all kinds of angles. And I've done all kinds of videos about looking at it. I really kind of have a Taoist philosophy now about not getting too excited about things. Just talking about them sometimes. Even that's a drag. because you don't want to get people all upset, and because really the Taoist philosophy is be still and let the world form around you. Remain still and centered and let the world form around you, and just look at it for what it is. But man, sometimes you look at it and you look at the people in it, and it's a very, very sad situation. Especially when you try to communicate your thoughts and your ideas and your, let's say, Thunder's truth. Let's say I have my own truth. And what is that based on? Well, I try to base it on reasonable intel. Okay. I don't listen to the mainstream media. See, that's another thing this guy I was talking to bought into. Well, I think the most truthful outlet, he says, is CNN. I said, oh, really? Okay. CNN is the most truthful outlet. Probably just the opposite. CNN is probably the most... the biggest manufacturer of lies, just like the rest of them. It's amazing that people buy into that shit. I said, you need to listen to some alternative media. You need to go on YouTube and scan around, and you need to go to other countries. You need to listen to things like Al Jazeera, okay, if you're going to go on cable, or RT, Russia Today. You need to go to other countries to get some semblance of truth of what's going on here. And you can go to things like, okay, I scan around, I listen to different guys, take out of it what coincides with my own intel. Guys like X22 Dave on X22, he seems to have a lot of shit covered for an alternative source. Then there's the deep alternative sources, or just the radical sources. I watch all kinds of videos from other countries, Russian, Syrian, Ukrainian, all kinds of outlets that show you what's really going on, like, say, on the front lines in Ukraine, or over in Syria, or not the spin. See, you never hear anything here in the U.S. Never hear anything about all the shit that's going on in Syria. Most people walk around, don't know a thing about. You mention Syria and you mention ISIS. Well, yeah, they know about ISIS. ISIS, the manufactured scary boogeymen of the U.S. government that they fund, that they created. But in order to really learn about all this stuff, that, in fact, that's the proxy army of the U.S. and it was created by the U.S. All this terrorist stuff was created by the U.S. It's a big boogeyman to keep people scared. And to take over governments, to take over places like Syria and replace the established leader who the people voted for with some kind of puppet, so that they can control resources, oil, pipelines, that kind of thing. And nobody even really knows why, what's going on as far as Russia going in there and taking out this very proxy army, which means Russia is at war with the United States, because they're taking out the so-called quote-unquote terrorists, the ISIS faction, the al-Nusra, and the al-Sham, whatever the fuck they call themselves. They got a new name every 5 minutes that they put on these people. Russia, to me, is maybe one of the only people that is really doing anything about stopping the onslaught of the New World Order and the vicious land-grabbing nationalistic fervor of the indispensable United States government, who thinks so much of themselves, just like they always have from day one when they tortured and burned alive and committed genocide on my people, Native American people, in the millions, 200 million plus, okay? Broke treaties, lied, took land, tortured people. It's what this country's based on, people. If you didn't know that already. So why would it change now? Why would it change? It's the same people, only it's worse. And they're still fucking over indigenous people by building pipelines across reservations, which they're doing right now, and there's a big protest against. Thunder's kind of a non-peaceful guy in that regard. I'd just as soon go out and do an armed occupation. That's where I'm coming from. If you're going to do shit, do it right, you know. Because they'll never listen. They never have listened. They never will listen. They don't give a shit about people. They don't even give a shit about their own citizens that aren't on the res. They're fucking everybody over. So again, you know, on reflection upon all this stuff, what do you do about it? Well, you really have to get into a spiritual state of mind to deal with it. A non-attachment, excuse me, where's my water? Non-attached state of mind. Talking about it like I am now, in a relaxed state of mind and not getting all heated up. See, when you get angry, it stifles your thinking process. Your emotions overtake you, and you can't think with a clear head when you're angry at somebody or a government or anything. Can't really sort things out because you're so angry and so incensed that it blinds you. You have to approach things in a calm, cool manner. And you learn that in the martial arts, you know, and in the Code of Bushido, and the way of the Taoist warrior. And you learn that you have to look at things in a cool, calm manner. Because even in battle, the true warrior who survives will be the one who keeps a calm, cool head, okay, and doesn't fear. That's the big thing, people, is that you can't fear. Anger is because you're afraid of something, okay. Anger is fear. It's both the same thing. So in order to dispel fear, don't buy into anger. And in order to not get angry, don't buy into fear. Keep a calm, cool head like the samurai who went into battle and already accepted death. What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, death. Once you accept that and you go into battle and you consider yourself already dead, you don't hesitate when the time comes to lift the sword and take a slice out of life. You don't hesitate. Because you know the worst thing that they can do to you, or anybody can do to you, is take your life. But once you give your life over, then that's when you live. That's when you really live, because you're not worried about the worst thing, quote unquote, that can happen. You see things with a clear head, and you have the nerves of steel. Okay, nerves of steel. And you move in a decisive manner. You move in a decisive manner. And you cut through the bullshit of life. You cut through the bone right in between the joints of the bone. Okay. Through to the core of what's going on. And that's what I call truth. Okay. That's what I call truth. Is when you can cut to the core of the situation. When you can see beyond the instilled societal beliefs. When you can see beyond the dogma of religion. When you can see beyond your own nose, when you can see the forest and not just the trees, okay, seeing the forest and not just the trees, seeing the big picture, feels good. And why does it feel good? Because it puts you in another frequency. Does it feel good to be stupid? Does it feel good to be numbed down to where you don't know what's going on? Well, if you can't deal with life, yeah, I guess it feels pretty good to get numbed down. And sometimes that's okay too. I indulge. But not to avoid the reality of what's going on. Thunder likes to indulge just to indulge in all kinds of things. Okay, I'm a free spirit and I do whatever the fuck I want, basically. When you get to my age and we get the wisdom that I got, and I'm not saying, I'm just being truthful. I've paid my dues. Been around the block 154,000 fucking times. Done things that most people wouldn't even. Let's put it this way: I've lived 7, 8, 9 lives. I'm like a cat in one life. And it was planned that way, I guess. It needed to be that way for a reason, okay? A purpose. That's how you enjoy life. You have many lives in one. You live many lives in one life, and you live each day as a life. You wake up in the morning and you're born, and you die at night, and you wake up the next morning and you have another life. And you have life after life after life, and you live in the moment. Wax on, wax off. And you enjoy everything that everybody else doesn't allow themselves to enjoy. If you think it's wrong or you think it's naughty, but you like it, do it. As long as you're not hurting anybody else. Don't deprive yourself. It's good to be moderate. Okay. But the I Ching says, be moderate in your moderation. Okay. Be moderate in your moderation, because some people go to this extreme. Well, I'm not going to do this and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to deprive myself of this, and man, I'm really going to get on a regime here. And then they go on down that road, and pretty soon they get bored with doing that regime because it's hard. And so instead of like being moderate with being moderate, like they should have been in the first place, they blow it and go completely to the other side because they've been moderate too long, and they want to go get extreme again. um, so you should be moderate in moderation, okay? In the fact that you're moderate, you need to be moderate in that and not go overboard with, man, I need to be moderate. Don't get too moderate. That's the point. Enjoy life. Enjoy life. That's all I got to say. Don't think that certain things are naughty or bad or immoral because somebody in some brainless fucking religious organization told you that. Or don't think that certain things are in the Bible that aren't in there at all. And don't think the Bible's the end all to be all, because that's just one of many religious books. Wax on, wax off. Thunder does that from time to time. One man's morality is another man's immorality. One man's right is another man's wrong. It's yin and yang, black and white. What would white be if you didn't know what black was? How would you know my hat was black if you didn't know what white was? How would you know what white was unless you experienced black? Think about that a while. Good and evil. One man's good is another man's evil. One man's white is another man's black. Thinking like this, like I'm thinking now, helps you get rid of judgment on others. Gets rid of a lot of guilt, a lot of fear. Actually gets to the core of any great master's teaching, like Yeshua or Buddha. Seeing the illusion or Maya for what it is. Nothing is other than what you believe it to be. Who told you to believe certain things? How do you form belief systems? Other people. Other people telling you this is the way it should be. You need to clear that glass of water that has become muddied by all the shit that people put into it. And get down to clarity again. That's what everybody's searching for, that clear glass of water, like when they were babies, when they were born, before people started dumping all the mud in there of what they thought was right and what they thought should be done and what they considered moral and immoral and what they considered religious and what they considered God and what they considered they, who were blind in the fucking first place because they had the same thing done to them. They did it to you. And you probably did it to your kids or whoever else you come in contact. So it's like the blind leading the blind off into oblivion. It's a striving after the wind. You can't catch the wind. So anyway, just thunder here in the desert. having a little wax on and wax off, and popping out another video. For those who like this kind of thing, for those who feel like they want to be befriended by a shamanistic character named Thunder. Adios, people.